seeing these things, these patterns all the time. Amazing companies that are leaving a lot of revenue on the table, while like certain startup companies are actually like, they have much better returns, better lead efficiency, conversion efficiency.
Sales is like sport. It's just like exercise, right? It's like a muscle.
Yeah.
You just need to keep reps. As long as you can be so bad at sales, but if you're willing to put like 100 reps into 100 discoveries, you will then become good at discovery. Like, it's fundamentally impossible not to do it well.
One of our internal strategic principles is, if you misdiagnose, you mistreat.
That's where I see the most problem as well. It's just like, you have to, if you're going to promote someone, and I learned this from you, but it's like that transition of like the 30, 60, 90 days of like actually changing it. You can transform someone from an IC into a sales leadership role, but just do it like slowly, and get them like to take each part off slowly and understand each element. Because if you just chuck it to them all and they don't understand the importance of each part of these things that's actually scaling the entire go-to-market team, they're just going to overlook everything, not understand the importance of the why, but also not know how to execute any of it.
All right, what's up, everyone? Mitch Miles here, the host. You're today's host of the Newell podcast, because my other host, if you watch the show, you've probably seen her before. This is Laura Skinner. We got on the show. She's my right-hand person and partner in Newell. And so this episode is going to be a special one and unique one, because typically on the show, again, if you're watching it at all, you know that we interview different go-to-market leaders, founders, entrepreneurs, things like that. And but today I wanted to interview Laura, and that way you guys can learn a little bit more about her background, her experience building sales teams. We're going to dive into her experience building SIA, or Sales Impact Academy, and a little bit more about the trends that she's seen and what she's seen work and not work, and then what she's doing these days. And so I'm excited. Laura, are you excited?
I'm so excited, but I'm just working here these days.
Yeah, exactly. So that's what we're going to be unpacking.
I love it.
But this is actually really cool, because again, if you're watching the show, you'll know that you're probably typically a founder, a revenue leader, like a CRO, or like go-to-market leader, maybe in revenue enablement, something like that. Yeah. And so you like staying on top of the trends of like what's working with building teams, attaining consistent like 90+ quota attainment, uncovering and fixing revenue leaks, different things like that. And so really, maybe we're a little bit biased, but I feel like we're on the front lines of what's working and what's not, and seeing these things, these patterns all the time. Amazing companies that are leaving a lot of revenue on the table, while like certain startup companies are actually like, they have much better returns, better lead efficiency, conversion efficiency. And so it's kind of cool, right? We see these things and we just want to share as much value with you. That way you can kind of take these lessons and try them on yourself, try them on your own teams and things. And so, but I'm like, the other day we're on a meeting, I'm like, who would be better to talk about these things?
I reckon I should interview you. I prefer that.
No. Well, maybe you'll flip the script and you can ask me some questions and things. So, but yeah, let's get into it. So I'm excited to talk today about these things. So again, Laura and I are constantly on meetings and talking about just nerding out on all of these different topics. And so I was like, yeah. So I mean, I've thought to myself, I'm like, man, this topic would make a good podcast episode. So that's what we're doing.
I feel like some people would think we're really sad.
Yeah, this is true. But nevertheless, for those of you that are actually nerds and like you want to talk about these things, then you'll enjoy this a lot. So let's get into it. So my first question, I'd like to go back to the beginning of your career, Laura, and what were like some of the biggest challenges like you faced when you were kind of like first starting out, right? Like how did those kind of, shape your view coming into doing what you do now?
In terms of Sales Impact Academy or just my career?
Yeah, I mean, we'll get into the Sales Impact Academy as well, but maybe when you were first starting out.
I think when I was first starting out, the SDR role was just like the number one role, right? Like every time you got into the SDR role, your career, if you nailed it, you could nail sales because you never had all of this hyper personalization. You never had all of this AI. Like I started sales and AI didn't exist. Well, probably for the nerdy people it may have. But like we had to do everything hyper personalized in person, almost like door to door sales vibes, which like you like grind. And it basically like if you can win in that role where you're getting through the gatekeepers, like you don't really have great data search engines yet. Like Zoom Info was alive but very young. Cognizant was alive but very young. Like they were was like data like software engineers, and your CRM was like super basic. Like you had Google, you had HubSpot, but the way like HubSpot, Gong, Salesloft, Salesforce have like come over the last 10 years is just insane. So I
Yeah.
feel like that was, I mean, it's still a hard role, but I honestly feel like if you can nail that or door to door sales, you're flying. Would you agree?
Yeah, like do you think that these tools and the automations, do you think it helps or hurts
I
reps
think
today?
I think it depends how you use it. I think it helps if you use it with an element of human. Like I don't think the spray and pray approach works of just like sending out X amount of messages, especially as like you've got to value sell more than direct sell these days to even get a meeting. But I do think it can increase productivity and it can enhance a sales rep. And I also think it's going to take the A players way ahead of the B players, even bigger difference than it's ever had before. And I also think building a proposal, if I had AI back in the day, we sometimes it took me half a day to build a proposal because it was just like so insane on like Google Slides. So all of that, yeah, enhances productivity. You can get way more messages out, but like you fundamentally cannot do it unless you're still being human and still have that element. Otherwise, it's just like spam and it just doesn't land. Like they just do not land like they used to.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree. I would agree. So I do think that most teams these days would probably see better results if they maximize everything before using any sort of AI and automation, in my
100%.
opinion. Yeah. So like the shameless plug, but like in my last newsletter, right?
Here
I'm
we
just
go.
kidding. But I did put this in there. I was talking about it because I think I love learning from just the best entrepreneurs. And I recently was diving into Elon Musk's like his biography, and there's a few of them. He
Yeah.
hasn't written his own autobiography, but there's a few people that have like interviewed people in his life and things like that. But one of the things he did in like 2018 when he was building Tesla and SpaceX at like the same time, which is insanity. He had to like literally like he had to become the world's leading expert in manufacturing, like in order to achieve this mission. And so he's like sleeping in his office at the warehouse. Like he doesn't go home for like months. And every day he's on the floor with the people like on the production line, like staying in there all day, just following them around, watching the belt and all that stuff. And he tried to automate everything. And he realized that that's actually what was slowing them down. Like he went all in on building these robots to automate the production line. And then you could see, yeah, you could see he tweeted in 2018 and he said, trying to automate everything or automation, extreme automation, I think is the way he put it. Extreme automation was a big mistake. My mistake, to be precise. Humans are underrated. That's what he said.
100%.
And yeah. And then that's become part of, he has this algorithm that he's put into every business since then. And obviously it works. And one of the things he says is like, don't automate until it's perfected. Right. So anyway, so I think it's generally a good idea to, as a sales rep, to get really good at your role and exceed your KPIs and then automate from there. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I genuinely just think the amount it can enhance you in terms of productivity levels is the number one.
Yeah. Yeah. Agreed. 100%. So, okay. So back, beginning of your career, you actually felt like doing the SDR role, right, without having all the tools that people have today is actually what made you really good. And then you feel like the tools that people have today is just kind of exceeded. It makes you more efficient, more productive. And you feel like that's really like the challenge you encountered.
Yeah, 100%. I actually feel like SDR is the hardest role, but I feel like if I was to go into an SDR role now, and I could send off 1,000 emails through a sequence, and I could have this dialer that could call 10 people at the same time, and the person that picked up answers when we were cold calling, and I could send out all of these automations on LinkedIn. I mean, it's just like a world that never existed. Whereas like we had none of that. So we were literally just like doing this manually. We had outreach, but you still had to go in and like hyper personalize, and it couldn't do these like thousands of endless emails that it can do now. Everything's just come along so much with AI that it does, but it also I think ruins that level of resilience and that level of what made me such a good rep if I came in as an SDR now, 100%.
Yeah. Agreed.
And
Yeah.
like even back then, like what was deemed as hugely successful for me in the SDR team, especially when I was building it globally, was 12 SQOs a month. That was like like 8 was industry standard, 12 was incredible. Like now people want like 12 a week because of all the tech that you can utilize alongside of it. But are those 12 meetings a week actually better than the 12 the month? I'd argue that they were way more qualified because of the level that we had to qualify them before they went to their AE with the limited tools and resources that we had. So they knew who we were. They'd been properly prospected, warmed up and nurtured. I don't know the answer to that, but like it's pretty much 3-4x the volume of like metrics and KPIs that people need to hit. And it's kind of just like lost its whole like effort, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, I think I think you were the one that told me this, but like a couple months ago or something, there was a study that came out semi recently that sales teams, I don't know if this is just in B2B or if it's like global, but only like less than 30% of sales reps hit quota right now.
It's so wild.
Yeah. And they have more tools, more resources than ever before.
Worrying thing. It's the numbers not actually increased that much. It could have even dropped. It's still around the same. But the level of the tools that have enhanced, I believe it's because it's forcing people to be lazy and it's lacking that human, it's lacking that effort, etc. But if you combine like the tools and resources with someone that didn't have them, I think that's the perfect formula.
Right. No, yeah, I couldn't agree more. Yeah.
Yeah,
And so okay, so again, going back, you know, what was like the moment where you felt like, for lack of better words, you feel like you kind of like saw the matrix where like, you're like, okay, hitting quota is not luck. Like I know exactly the system. Like, what do you feel like that moment was for you?
Well, I achieved it and I wasn't very clever. So I was like, if I can do it, then it's got to be possible. No, I'm joking. Honestly, sales is like sport. It's just like exercise, right? It's like a muscle.
Yeah.
You just need to keep reps. As long as you can be so bad at sales, but if you're willing to put like 100 reps into 100 discoveries, you will then become good at discovery. Like it's fundamentally impossible not to do it well if you could put in that many reps. So I knew that underperformance is widely accepted because the work ethic is so low, particularly in my generation, because I put in so many reps. We were scaling, in my first company, we were scaling so aggressively that sometimes I was doing like 15 to 20 demos over like 2 days or like discoveries. So what it meant was each part of the sales cycle, I was constantly practicing, albeit was probably terrible in the first year, but I was constantly getting live feedback and I was constantly just like on the next one, that in the space of like a year, I probably had like as many sales calls as like a typical 5 to 10 year sales rep. And I feel like if you can put in that many reps, it's honestly like physics not to become good. And that's why I love sales so much, is because you need to practice it and have the reps even now. Like I'm still learning, I'm still growing. But you can get pretty good at like your sport, your baseline, and then just like craft it by literally just reps. Like if you just carried on doing that many sales calls for 6 to 12 months, like you fundamentally can't not be good at it.
Yeah. Well, how long do you think that would take? Like,
Totally
let's say, go ahead.
Totally depends on the person and their characteristics. Like some people can't have the social ability or the IQ to understand what's going on within a sales call and then pivot on the spot. You can't really teach that, but you can teach like 80% of that. And if they're willing to put in 80%, then the rest they can learn. But that latter part comes through experience and knowing where you are in the deal and kind of getting that gut intuition. But some people get that very quickly, very, very quickly. And then you put that with the momentum of them putting in the reps. They're like the ones that like I've always seen as just being killer.
Yeah. Yeah, agreed. But without like, so let's say, you know, you just gave an abundance of opportunities and reps, like repetitions, meaning like to a sales rep, whether it be AE, SDR, what doesn't matter. But they were just going through the process consistently without any intervention. You feel like they would get better fairly quickly without any intervention. versus like if there was some sort of intervention?
No, I don't think so, that because you can be going off completely not them just on their own, right? And they need to be like coached and etc. But I don't even think
Yeah.
even in the first 30, 60, 90 days reps should be staking revenue and being on live with live prospects anyway a lot of the time. You can do a lot of
Yeah.
this in role plays, and you can do a lot of this like in one-to-one coaching, etc. Depending on it depends on your ACV and who you're selling into. Like I'm not staking $1 million deal on a new rep, but I'll give them lower tier deals, and I'll also rep with them and role play that $1 million deal with them live. But they need intervention. But I just mean that the more that you genuinely practice, it's like, it's so funny because it's like everyone just like waits till they're live on the sales call. It's like, what professional athlete just waits till they're like playing in the game? It's like, no, they
Right.
practice Monday to Friday and then they've got the game on the Saturday. Sales has never been deemed like that. And that's when I fundamentally saw that there was like a massive error. I was just like, hang on a minute, everyone's just like playing the game all day, every day, not reflecting, not getting better, and no practice is going on.
Right. No, I agree with that. Like I would say the formula for, having a masterfully, good sales team, right? Is like the tighter the feedback loop, right?
100%.
So it's almost like you got to maximize the feedback loop and like speed. Like it's got to be very, very tight. Like at least they need to be getting feedback. Like in a perfect world, it would be like every single call that they have, right?
Oh
That
my
might be
goodness, yeah.
unreasonable, right? That might be unreasonable, but like you got to get as close to that as you possibly can with like the team, the resources and stuff. But it's like at least once a day or some, and I would say at least worst case it'd be like that week. Like every single week, there's got to be 2 or 3 calls that, should have converted, but didn't. And someone's reviewing them, giving them coaching, and again, so I think if you can maximize the feedback loop and then maximize the repetitions, like they just need to practice. And that could be role plays where there's no stake, right? There's no like money on the table, or they can do it with the deals that they have in which there is opportunity cost, right? And so I think the faster you can do that, if you can maximize feedback loop, maximize giving them as much practice as possible, I think the quicker they're just going to get.
Yeah, I mean the pivot. So when I was B2B my entire career, and then I obviously pivoted. Well, for the listeners that don't know this, I pivoted into the high ticket space where you obviously built that whole company. And the number one thing was just like the level of just like call reviews. It was like the frontline leadership's role is honestly, I mean, it was just crazy to me the difference in the frontline leadership role at that company compared to like a B2B company, because in B2B, people get away with like projects. They're reporting up, like the CRO role. They're trying to like. There's just so much work that goes on that doesn't really like move the needle. Whereas in the high ticket space, especially at the company you built, is like it was just their sole purpose. 95% of it was quality control. Literally call review after call review after call review. And then the other thing that I learned, which was just huge, is like actually doing a live call review, because if your team are speaking to similar people and selling the exact same product, they're probably making similar mistakes. And you can do offline call reviews, but then you could do it live, and everyone on that call is then learning. And that's just like the quicker way to 3, 4, 5x the productivity, as well as just you being one person.
Yeah. Yeah. Agreed.
So you
I
taught
think it's go ahead. What was that?
you taught me everything I know.
That's not true, but thanks. Yeah. Yeah, I would say I would agree with that. In the industry, like you kind of came from the B2B tech and then moved into this like the high ticket kind of online internet marketing world. And I came from that world and kind of moved into B2B tech. But we both kind of see the differences, and like there's a lot that the B2B tech world does really well that like this like online industry, could learn from, and vice versa. And one of the things is that I think the B2B tech world really lacks is that very proactive sales leadership, right? Or revenue leadership.
Insane. Like genuinely, you're lucky to get like one gong call recording a week, let alone like every day. And
Yeah.
especially as like a lot of these leaders, some of them hold quota. Like it's very, very common in the B2B space to be like a team lead, but actually be on quota still. So it's like a player coach, the most horrific role that ever existed. I mean, the pressure.
Yeah.
But like that's very common. And so it's just like where do you put, like where do you lie? And then a lot of the B2B leaders have never been coached on how to coach. And then when I came over to the high ticket space, I was like, oh my goodness, like that you are coaching the frontline leaders on how to coach. They are coaching that down. It's just like a winning formula. It's like the ultimate competitive advantage if you've got a sales leadership frontline leader that actively knows how to coach, give feedback in like the most timely manner. It's like the
Yeah.
number one thing.
Yeah. Agreed. It's so underrated and
Ridiculous.
completely looked over. you know, and yeah. And so I would say like a lot of the B2B, what the B2B tech world does really well is this obsession about like the product, right? And there's plenty of companies that don't, but I would just say there's an inherent, like a lot of time, attention, energy that goes into the product, which is great, right? This is great. And I think that what the point I'm making is a lot of these companies are doing well, right? In spite of, you know, poor sales leadership and sales talent, or at least sales excellence, right? They're doing well. Maybe they're hitting their, you know, they're making the investors happy, the shareholders happy, whatever. And again, they're doing that in spite of, not because of the sales team or revenue team, right? Versus in the high ticket world, there's a complete lack of attention that goes into the product, and everything is sales and marketing.
It's
so
insane.
again, like the ultimate win or competitive advantage would be to take what this industry is doing really well in terms of sales and marketing excellence and applying that to a great product, and I mean, it'd be game over. You know what I mean?
Yeah, honestly, and the B2B world is just so slow, right? And they don't actually understand like incremental gains. Like they just don't understand what one piece of feedback and then the sales rep takes that into their next call. Like, can you imagine like 5 days of a working week and you give your rep one thing and they do that over the 5 days? They've just got like 5x better, so to speak. And that improvement just compounds and compounds and compounds. Whereas what happens, because they're naturally just slow, like there's a lot of red tape, it's like they're almost like bloated within the sales organizations anyway. You've got enablement leaders, you've got revenue people, it's a very bloated scenario in a lot of these big businesses that actually they're getting a piece of feedback, but even though they're getting that feedback, it's A, slow and delayed from the call about 2 weeks ago anyway, that it's not top of mind, and B, it takes so long to get the next one that it's just like, it's not addressed in the way that it needs to be addressed to get the best productivity out of what they're even doing.
Yeah. No, yeah, agreed. Like, I think what you said is it's so delayed, and that's like the biggest thing. You know, it's like you know, like in any sort of training and coaching, you know, study, right? In any capacity, this could be athletics, it could be professional, it doesn't matter, right? Even like when you're raising a kid, right? It's like the sooner the feedback is to the event that they you know that's relevant to the feedback, the quicker the better. Because it's top of mind and it just sticks in your brain. If you're trying to give someone feedback on something that happened 2 weeks ago, they're just likely going to forget. You know?
Yeah, it's fun. It's fundamentally like role expectations. Like that's where I've seen the biggest difference. Like when we came into like the high ticket space, every sales leader knew what their role was. Their role was 90 to 95% to do that. The role expectations of like a VP of sales or like a head of sales or a frontline leader is more on the lines of like deal reviews or one-to-ones or forecasts or things along that nature. It's not so much like live call coaching repetitions every single day. It's very much like, give me your forecast, do live deal reviews. But then these poor like sales reps are coming and doing live deal reviews and they're being like grilled, and it's like they're not even being coached on like how to solve those gaps anyway. It's just a really weird paradox, and the role expectation fundamentally in both those industries is completely different, and one outperforms the other by a mile because one is actually directly impacting the rep on getting better. The other's just almost just like tick boxing.
Yeah, exactly. Checking off the boxes.
Checking off the deal reviews.
Yeah, because eventually, like that person's gonna have a performance review, and they're trying to make their supervisor happy, and it's not really about the numbers as much.
About the numbers. It's literally not about the numbers, but in the B2B world it is, but it's insane that it is, and then there's still such a level of underperformance. Like it just needs to be flipped on its head, but I guess that's what I'm gonna do.
Yeah, so let's talk about like actual like effective sales leadership, right?
Yeah.
Well, so I know that you previously started a company that we already mentioned. It was Sales Impact Academy.
Well,
I think you have
started.
Okay.
I was just in the founding team.
Okay, founding team.
Let's not give me
so that's okay. So but you helped build this company, and I think you have just a fortune of insights and feedback. Again, just seeing what the experience, what worked, what didn't work, things like that. I'd love for you to unpack how that went and your learning lessons.
Yeah, for sure. So it was a founder called Paul Fifield, unbelievable guy. He just had this
in a good way.
Pardon?
You said unbelievable guy. It's just in a good way.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Sorry. The
Yeah.
UK people will get that. Maybe the US would.
Okay.
But he had this vision where he was honestly saw the gap like way before anyone else did. And it literally started on sales education on like Google Docs, like literally just courses on Google Docs. And then we just started coaching them, but bringing in like industry experts to coach on these courses. And it blew up really quickly because there was nothing like it in the market, but we couldn't keep up with the pace. And it pivoted, right? It pivoted from honestly, everyone was just like so. A lot of the selling point was the people that were coaching it, i.e., we had a negotiation course coached by Chris Voss. We had a winning mentality coached by Sir Clyde Woodward, which everyone in the UK would know, US probably not, but he did a UK Great Britain Olympics winner and the Rugby World Cup against Australia in 2003. So really big sports like leadership, right? Everyone knows these people. So that was huge. But the issue fundamentally was it was on demand. It wasn't on demand. It was live at 4 p.m. EST, which was on purpose because it was supposed to be part of your working day. So it was like, or maybe it was 4 p.m. UK time and 11, and maybe, I don't know. But anyway, it was supposed to be part of your working day. You had to attend 2 a week. And although it was live, it started to get that popular that we would have like hundreds of people, like I'm talking hundreds of people just on this, where they could have their cameras off. They didn't really need to engage. And then slowly what started to happen was they were doing stuff, other things, because the gaps that we missed was, yeah, it was there in terms of like 80% of the sales training, but it wasn't bespoke to anyone. It wasn't ICP, IBP, like it wasn't their specific company, which is the objection I received every single sales call. And then on top of that, it was so broad that actually when you look at someone and you look at their ability and where their gaps are, it's probably going to be very different to someone else, but it's just going to be nuanced within discovery. So someone can run an okay discovery but have a completely different problem to someone that's also on that call running an okay discovery, and they need different coaching. But we don't understand any of their baseline because we never even knew really who these people were. We just knew they were sales reps. So we never understood their current state, where they wanted to get to, personalized it to them, and pretty much as it's meant to be live, it was pretty ended up being on demand because like it was like just showing up for a webinar. It could have been on demand, to be honest, because it wasn't that like engaging. So it went really, really, really well for a good couple of years. And then what happened was people digested content and it changed like that. Like overnight, how people digested content changed. And then everyone wanted this like bespoke one-to-one coaching sessions, which we did. We turned them into lightning sessions, which did really well, but we were just too late. Like it was just too late to kind of like save it at that point. But it was that pivot from that demand to that one-to-one coaching, really. So it's a number of things, but it's just interesting because you really do need to understand what their problem is to be able to coach effectively, and not just like a broadly like discovery on when someone could have been on that selling a 5k ACV to a VP of sales, and also someone could have been doing a half a multi-million-dollar deal, whatever, to a CTO. And it's just like, how can that land, you know?
Yeah. 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 So you feel like that was the main missing piece, and maybe you would even go as far to say that that's the most leveraged like thing you can do in terms of training salespeople and coaching salespeople, is having it very specific to their industry, their product, their market, so on and so forth.
I fully believe if we would have got to the lightning session idea at 6 to 12 months earlier, before we were burning a lot of cash, we would have saved the business.
Wow.
100%. Because when we went to the lightning sessions, you just had one top coach with the same company in the same role. It was literally just like what you and I were doing at closers. Like you just had a group of people selling to the same people. It was specific to them, and we were role playing. So it was a lightning session called, and it was like a role play. So we would be like, okay, today we're going to role play X, Y, and then you give live feedback on the call. So it's almost like a live call review, but we were just a little bit too late. But if we would have pivoted to that, that's where we saw the engagement start to rocket. That's where the feedback started to come back again. It was almost like the early days.
Wow. Yeah. No, that makes sense. That makes sense. So do you feel like, I mean, obviously, and that's a little bit more, well, a lot of more like what you're doing now. So now you're doing, bespoke custom coaching feedback with like one-on-one with reps. And like, what's the difference that you're seeing doing the one-on-one versus like what you're doing then?
Well, I understand exactly where their problem is because we've already done something that we call an audit, where we understand and we watch their calls and we do a quantitative and qualitative analysis on literally the person. Like I'm coaching people and I've call reviewed at least 10 to 15 of their calls. I know how they speak. I know how they're working. I know how they're programmed. I know how to coach them. Then it's even more specific to their specific industry, their deal size, everything. So it's just, it lands way better. But the funny thing is, and this is where I went so wrong in my career, was I genuinely thought for so long that sales you can pretty much learn, like is pretty much all the same up to 90%, and then the rest is like a bit nuanced. So I was like, well, you want SIA because you can get all the sales coaching, and then like your revenue enablement can do like the latter 10%. And I was so wrong. Like I was so wrong in all of that, which is why that we're so passionate about what we're doing now.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree. Because I get part of what we were doing, at Closers, which is the previous company that you and I are both a part of, that I was there, and, I helped like build that from the very beginning. But, it was essentially it was like a sales licensing. Like we had a great sales program that was very kind of industry agnostic, so to speak. And it was like very generic sales training, amazing sales training. Like everybody should go through it. But it's really hard to sell that to every single company, have these reps kind of pop in, watch these videos, and they're licensing these trainings. But again, it's not hyper specific. And unless you're getting like the role play, the one-on-one kind of bespoke feedback, even in like the structure of the discovery, and then dealing with objections, and it's so nuanced. So I would agree with you. That's kind of like, I probably would have thought it was like 80% just sales philosophy and then 20% nuance, but it's like the other way around, right? It's like 20% sales philosophy, 80% one-on-one feedback,
I know.
So
even down to the way that you can pace a discovery compared to a small to a larger deal. But we didn't know any of this. We would just have hundreds of people on like a Zoom link, because it was just Zoom back then. And like, we knew nothing about them. We had no data on them. And it was like, well, I hope this lands. And it did for a while. And that's what put us into almost like, oh, this is amazing. Like we were almost like arrogant about a product that actually was just going to crash because of just like the market feedback was so amazing. But you just fundamentally can't last that long because it's just so different. It's like, to be able to apply that to your day-to-day is really hard. You've got to bridge the gap of coaching someone something and then educate them on how to actually apply that in their working day, and then giving them live feedback on it. If you have those three elements, then you've got the winning formula. But all we were doing was just like hey, here's the information, just literally just the information part. None of the, oh, here's how it works in your world. And then on top of that, let's review you doing it live and I'll give you proper feedback on it.
Yeah. Yeah. So tell me your experience now. So now you're doing this very custom one-on-one coaching feedback regularly. And tell me about that. How's it going?
Well, I've been told it's life-changing.
Really? Verbatim. This is actually true. She told me the other day. So you got some feedback. Yeah, you got some feedback. And they literally said you changed our lives.
Yeah. Look, I think it's interesting, right? Every sales rep is so different. Handling sales reps is like so hard within itself, because you have like the eccentric, crazy sales reps, and you have the really thoughtful, active listeners sales reps. And it's just like a market of really like versatile people, for one. But it's going amazing purely because I understand each individual. Now, obviously, there's an issue of can you scale that? But there are ways to scale it. But just understanding where a business is at before you start to diagnose and then prescribe the problem is huge. For example, back in the day, if I saw a 18% close rate, I've got the data there, but I would never have understood why. Like I would never have thought to batch watch 50 calls and then I know why the close rate there. I would have just thought, okay, 18% close rate, let's just work on their discovery. Or it'll probably be their objection handling, or I bet it's the negotiation. Or I'd just ask the rep to clarify, which is just like the worst thing ever. Whereas now, like, we get the data and then you understand the why. So I can watch the call recordings, and every single one of the people that I coach at the minute has a different reason why they have a poor close rate. So it's just like, it's so custom to what they specifically need and then how they work. And then it's just like, it just works so much better. But we do group as well, but just groups that are grouped in the same industry with typically the same problem once we've understood where they're at.
Yeah. No, exactly. One of our internal strategic principles is, if you misdiagnose, you mistreat.
Yeah, 100%.
Right? So it's like how we run our company. But this is the same principle applies, with clients. That's why, really our principles are the same, even when it comes to client success. But if you misdiagnose, you mistreat. You could think, okay, our team has a closing problem, and so we need to do an objection, handling training, right? And then, right. It's like, that's not like, one person may have a issue at the, with the objections at the end, but the rest of the team could be dealing with just discovery issues or engaging stakeholders or whatever,
And I promise you now, I know we do them in kind of like 90 days because that's from the data again, where you can make the most impact in the smallest amount of time. But you put your reps through like 90 days intense, like go to market, sales training. And I hate the word training, but active role plays, active live feedback, active like understanding where the risks are, the stakeholder engagement, the buyer mapping, just all of this, and they know the product really, really well, they will just dominate for the rest of the year. All they really need is 3 months, and then it's just practicing and practicing, and then their leadership should be giving them call reviews. But it's just literally that initial stage to really get them to understand like the why behind each part of the sales process. A lot of the people I'm working with at the minute don't understand why they need to do a good discovery. Yeah. So that's huge as well. And people are just at different levels. It's just like clumping a load of sports athletes together and trying to train them in the same way. It's mental.
Yeah. Yep. Agreed. And so I know you're also training, working with sales leaders as well. So tell me about that, the role when it comes to sales leadership. We kind of touched on this earlier, but I'm curious, what are you training on? How is that affecting, the company, impacting the company?
Yeah, it's interesting. This is all kind of like genuinely, I know you're going to laugh, but what you coached me on, and it's that part of they know how to sell, so they're taking over their sales rep. So like if we were on a call together and then you just like jump in and then don't let me speak, and they're doing all of that, so they're cannibalizing their time that their RVPs are on with all of these individual reps, and then they don't know how to coach downwards. So that's the gap, is they know how to sell themselves, the RVPs. I mean, they're pretty high up, they get it more so than their reps, even though they are hyper focused on the product. But they don't understand how to coach. They don't understand how to run effective meetings. They don't understand how to ask their reps to come to a deal review and actually explain, if you don't have these 3 things, you probably don't have a deal. And they don't understand how to run those, like almost like a cadence of like your daily operating rhythm on how to do that with your team. It's more just, I'll hop on all these calls everywhere, and then I've probably got a meeting with the CRO, and then I've probably got some forecasting that I need to prepare for the Friday weekly leadership. And your time just, or I've got some decks to build. I mean, honestly, the amount of like these companies, the amount of decks they have, like processes, all of this, all of like stuff that's just like so not digestible, that they're just spending time on the wrong activities. That's literally it. If they just pivoted to spending more time on the activities where they coach, this would then transform the entire sales organization.
Yep.
But that is genuinely everything that you taught me, like about how you just built closers from that aspect. And then you had all of these frontline leaders that knew how to coach, that knew how to give right feedback down by call reviewing, by looking at data. And then it just like is the ultimate competitive advantage, because everyone's winning, like everyone's getting good feedback, everyone knows how to improve, and it just creates like the most high performance team ever, because it's honestly like being a professional athlete.
Yep. Exactly. I couldn't agree more. I talk about that a lot, and like sometimes it just helps to like I was with one of our clients, as a relatively new sales leader, tons of experience in sales, and really good at what he does, but now he's in this leadership role, and it was just classic, right? They just come in to start working with us, and he spends way too much time in like the CRM and like building reports and like building all this stuff, trying to automate things. Yeah, it's like a black hole, it'll just suck you in, and it doesn't really lead to anything, right? It's like there's no other side to that. And 80% of what a sales leader should be doing is coaching and giving feedback. That's 100%.
It. The CRM as well, it's never accurate because sales reps aren't implementing accurate data. So you go onto Salesforce and you pull a report, you basically need to weigh it 10% either side at the very like minimum. So, but they're not doing any of the core reviews. So the reason that we can be so accurate is we're reading the data from these companies, but we're also backing it up with what we're seeing. Whereas most companies will go to their forecast meeting, pull something off HubSpot and be like, this is the data, and it's just not even accurate. But whereas if you combine that with actually reviewing the calls, it kind of gives you that element of actually, no, the close rate is really poor because of X, Y, and Z. And then you can come with that data as well, which justifies it, but they're missing that whole part.
Mm-hmm. No, yeah. Exactly. So, and it goes both ways too. So like earlier I was touching on automation, and I think a lot of companies that I work with, it's like they either rely on self-reporting from the sales team, which leads to faulty data, or they just try to automate everything. which again just leads to faulty data. It's like, and then again, if you misdiagnose, you mistreat. So it's like this, the implications of this is this compounding problem where eventually you end up with leadership trying to make data-driven decisions. The data is not accurate. And so they misdiagnose the problem, and then they're putting all this time, attention, and resources into solving the problem, which wasn't even the problem in the first place. You know what I mean? And ultimately this leads to what I call, revenue leaks, and I think a lot of these companies have that. So like one of the things that we do is when a company comes in to potentially, work with us, one of the first things we'll do is just like a revenue audit, right? This is where we audit everything, like marketing, sales, their MDRs if they have them, SDRs if they have them, per channel, right? So maybe you have outbound and then you have like maybe some inbound or whatever. We just want to audit everything and find with a primary focus of maximizing lead efficiency and overall team efficiency. And so, yeah, talk to me about that. Like how common is it that, leaders are trying to solve the wrong problem? Like maybe it's, for example, they feel like they just need more SQOs, right? And then how often is that the case?
It's honestly like it's just the whole time. Like I don't want to be like it's everyone, but it's actually just ridiculous because the data's inaccurate on the CRM. Like the quicker sales leadership and C-suite understand that the sales reps aren't inputting accurate data, and these reports that are coming off are just like, it's not as accurate as it needs to be. And then they are just spending time on the wrong problem. Like ultimately they're spending time on the wrong problem. And also, I personally think the frontline leadership role is the most pivotal role in the go-to-market team over any kind of like C-suite. But I actually don't blame a lot of them because I was in the position where I was just promoted because I was a top performer. And then I was like, now I'm a leader, but I basically just reported to the CRO like once a month. And I had no idea on how to coach. And it's a whole role change, but you just change it overnight and you're expected to know how to do that, but it's a completely different role. Whereas like, that's where I see the most problem as well, is just like, you have to, if you're going to promote someone, and I learned this from you, but it's like that transition of like the 30, 60, 90 days of like actually changing it. You can transform someone from an IC into a sales leadership role, but just do it like slowly and get them like to take each part off slowly and understand each element. Because if you just chuck it to them all and they don't understand the importance of each part of these things, that's actually scaling the entire go-to-market team, they're just going to overlook everything, not understand the importance of the why, but also not know how to execute any of it. Like I was like a 23-year-old managing a team of like 12 BDRs all around America. Like I don't know how to coach these people. I was just really good at booking meetings. It's like really hard, and it's like a massive problem in the industry. Is like that not having someone to coach the coach on how to coach.
Right.
Yeah.
I know they don't know how to coach, and then they don't, and even if they do, a lot of them don't know how to diagnose.
No,
you know what I mean? And so
you're really good at I'm good at like the whole fixing it. You're good at identifying what I need to fix. Yeah, but this is so true. So we recently, I'll give an example. The last like two, companies that we've been working with. One of them was this marketing agency, and this other one is a company called Hampton, if you're familiar, which is a phenomenal company. Love them and love working with them. But both of them, on both of these cases, they thought they needed like a cold outbound engine. In both cases, that's what they essentially wanted. That was like their first request, right? They're like, we need more leads. You need to help us like on LinkedIn, like build out this outbound thing. And in both cases, when we did the audit, there was so many inbound leads coming in that were just completely ignored and neglected, right? Like nothing, and it comes down, it's not just performance, but a lot of it was, it's like some of it's like operational and like how they, they just don't have a proper system for it. So it's like, you need to have the step-by-step, like if this, then that, like once this comes in, this is what happens. This, it gets assigned to this person does this. They know what to say. They either call them, email them, whatever. And, but like literally if all we did was fix those leaks, if all we did they didn't have to spend any more in marketing budget. They didn't need to add any more leads. If all they did was fix that, it would double or even triple their company sometimes, which sounds unbelievable or crazy, but it's true. Like if all they did was even just a 20 or 30% increase in lead efficiency, sometimes not even that, it's like 15% increase in lead efficiency. And like, it would be as if they, 2x the company, and so it's actually pretty absurd.
And so that's why we're really passionate too about finding these revenue leaks. And it's like if you can identify in the system these revenue leaks and plug them, you can do that without hiring anyone new, without increase in budget, and it's highly profitable too because there's no increase, right, in complexity or anything. And then from there, just develop your sales leadership, one-on-one coaching and feedback, custom bespoke to those reps specifically. It really does change everything, you know.
I'm trying to think of a time that we've brought on a client where we're not doing something different in fulfillment from when they originally came to us. Like
Yeah,
every,
right.
like I'm trying to think now, like I'm even trying to think with some of the companies we work with at the minute that want like sales reps coaching, then we've pivoted to actually coaching their leadership because that's actually going to be a better ROI for them because their leadership can then pass it all down. But like I don't think we've worked with anyone that's a client that we're both fulfilling on that have come to us in that first ever sales call with what they wanted.
Yeah, it's always different.
It's
It's literally
always
always different. I know they're like, this is what we want and what we need. What can you guys help us? And then we're like, well, okay, let's, then we do the audit, and then it ends up with
yeah.
like a completely different protocol, different plan. You know, it's pretty
It's
crazy.
and
Yeah.
I don't blame some of these companies because it's time consuming. Like what
Hmm.
you and I are both doing to understand this problem is I know we say audit, but it's like a full on I was going to say dissertation, but I guess you guys won't even know what that is. It's like a full on like process of like lots and lots of work to really understand what it is. So people don't have time for this, which is ironic because if they just did, they would save themselves a lot of money. But also people don't know how to do it effectively. Like you had to teach me a lot, like the way that you can just like look at numbers and pull it from and just be like, that's the problem, that's the problem. But also it just takes a lot of time. So actually knowing how to diagnose correctly and then the time constraint, people don't even think to do it, to be honest. But
Hmm.
that's obviously where we come in, but people don't know what they don't know. So if they're just looking at a load of numbers, it's probably not going to be as obvious as it is to you and I.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, I don't blame them either because a lot of this, these like thinking, like these frameworks for how to diagnose the problem accurately. I just don't think it's taught really, like
100%.
number one, which is really unfortunate, but it's true, but a lot of it comes from like old, like I also think the other issue is a lot of these companies maybe like work remote. A lot of their data, like everything is kind of like lives online. And so, and then like people are not there. And it's like a lot of it is, they think the problem is because of some Slack message that they got. They're not actually like pulling that, diagnosing that from the data. And then even when the other issue is that, like when we do these audits, we start with the quantitative analysis, which is the numbers and the metrics. And then the second part is the qualitative, which I think also just never happens. Like
Well,
you'd
that's
be
what we told
amazed. Yeah. So it's like the quantitative analysis that's like, it sounds fancy. It's looking at the metrics correctly
yeah.
and identifying like where to look. It's like, oh, okay, so there's a revenue leak in this part of the process, we believe, but we're not going to make any assumptions. We're going to now like listen to those calls or watch those meetings and figure out what's going on. And so it tells us where to look, but it doesn't really tell us what the problem actually is. And so then the qualitative will tell us that, right? Which is hard when you have this like remote team and people are bogged down but pulling reports and doing admin work instead of actually reviewing stuff, you know? And I learned that from, was, believe it or not, the manufacturing industry.
Yeah.
So there's a couple of great books on this, like one of which I touched on from Elon Musk's life, but also there's an old book called like Lean Thinking, that talked about these consultants that work with Toyota, and they would go to the manufacturing line, and there's this principle that even Elon Musk calls it like walking to the red, which is like when there's a breakdown in the process, there's a red light that flashes, and he says you always walk to the line to figure out what happened. Don't like, yeah, you know what I mean? Don't take like secondhand feedback. Just go to it, look at it, see what happened. And I think that's really valuable and it goes a long way, you know.
I
So
I agree. I think the other thing that's actually worth touching on, which is the difference between both the industries, just going back to the start and like the problems that we're trying to solve for, is what you'll typically see in B2B revenue teams is you'll have a top performer and they'll either carry the top two performers will carry the quota and no one really understand why or why they're so good. And sometimes you can't even repeat what they're doing because you don't really get it yourself when you're, even if you are call
yeah.
reviewing. But I think the other problem is what the industry has a massive problem with is like turnover, and they'll try and replace it with other top talent. And the fundamental reason is why, and so many people listening to this will get this, you've got a top performer like Salesforce, and then they come to like Gong, and they're not as good, right? But it's not because like their ability, it's because like the sales infrastructure, the sales vehicle isn't there. So we always talk about how everyone just over indexes on talent, like talent. And yeah, you absolutely need that. But the one thing that I learned at Closes from you specifically was talent can only get you so far. Then you need all of the like architecture vehicle, which is how someone can just be placed into a company and then just be able to execute. Whereas that's the reason behind seeing top performers do really well at one company and then fail at another, because that happens all the time and no one understands why. It's because you've been put into processes that aren't efficient, processes that actually aren't working, messaging that actually hasn't been changed for 6 to 12 months, that's not landing anymore, infrastructure, the processes, the playbooks, all of this stuff isn't updated and working at the optimal, which means you can't really work at the optimal, which is fundamentally going to make you underperform, which is where like I think we have in this industry a huge problem.
Yep. Yeah. No, exactly. It's like, yeah, I like to use the quote a lot from like James Clear, where he says, at least that's his name, I think, right? The guy who wrote Atomic Habits. I think it's James Clear, but he says we don't rise to the, yeah, it's a great book, but he says we don't rise to the level of our goals, we fall to the level of our systems, right? Yeah. And so he's talking about habits in this case, but it's the same thing. Like you're managing, whether you're managing oneself or you're managing other human beings, the principle still applies. And it's like these companies have these goals and these aspirational goals, and they they write it down, or they freaking put on a poster on the wall or whatever. And they talk about it every single meeting, and they're like, oh, we got to hit these. And they're thinking it's gonna, it's like they need motivation. They got to get the team to really commit, or they'll just go and find someone, like poach someone from another company and find some top talent, bring them here. And, at the end of the day, it's like, okay, that's a gamble. Like you may do it, but how do you ensure that you do it? How do you know for sure we're going to do it? Worst case scenario, we're going to hit these projections and these targets. And it all comes down to systems, which for bringing on new talent, it's all about having the sales vehicle, which is like, your process, your management systems, your QC process, which should be happening every single day. You have to have a proper onboarding because most turnover happens in the first 90 days. And if you're like some of these companies we work with, even if they don't hit target, they don't even turn over. They just put them somewhere else in the company, or they just keep them. But it's really unfortunate. And I mean, that's a surefire way to make sure you don't hit your numbers, So you got, and again, from the industry I come from, that was unacceptable. If you were there, it's like, if you miss projections, like you're cut from the team.
Yeah.
So
yeah, by the way, QC means quality control, because that was like a whole new logo or lingo, whatever you want to call it, that I had no idea. Basically just call reviewing on steroids, really. Just call review and get feedback. Yeah. But yeah, 100%. It's like, you can't expect someone to perform if they've not got like the vehicle to perform in. And that's where we see huge issues with like, you can have like a B player. I would rather take like 10 B players and have the sales vehicle that I know that we can create and have just that steady revenue than have like a few A players, but in an absolute chaotic zero like element of like actually being able to execute and that vehicle and that processes. Because most companies don't have it. Like people won't really understand what we mean by it. Like we mean by like the hour to the day of like operational, like Monday to Friday, what your leadership and the team should be doing, from like multiple stand-ups throughout the day, multiple check-ins, processes, playbooks, a live call review every single day. Like it is really intense. Like when I joined Closes, I was just like, this was like nothing I'd ever seen before or been exposed to. And we built a sales company. It's insane.
Yeah. It's different, but it works. It works. And again, it's systems, right? Each one of those things, it's not for the sake of being busy, but it's systems. Like, there's a morning sales meeting. We have a specific agenda that we know works. It's based on data. It's a system. Yes. Your end of day report, it's a system. Like the QC or quality control process, like like everything is systematized, and it's all designed for like maximum output without burning out your team, And so, anyways, so what else? What would you say you'd like to touch on in terms of like trends that you're seeing, things that move the needle that you'd want to offer to the audience?
I honestly think there's this weird area of like revenue enablement and sales enablement within businesses, right? So when we built Sales Impact Academy, we fell into like the nice to have bucket, not the need, which was wild to me because you can literally like quantify them not acting right, and you lose most deals to no action anyway. But there's this thing with like revenue enablement and go-to-market enablement teams that think that they have this, like C-suite will not be exposed to the front line. They think that, I see this all the time, they think they've hired, oh, let's hire Laura to be our like revenue enablement leader, and that's sorted, and we don't need anything else, and we've hired that role. The issue with that role is they're so focused on product, and then they're so focused on onboarding, and they typically have more than just the sales team, and they've got so much to do for that one person. Like, you can have one enablement person. We're speaking to a potential customer at the minute, and he's 1 to 45 or 1 to 50, which is just never going to give you the level of what they actually need. But it's impossible for C-suite to understand what's going on because there's no communication. So C-suite or like execs or VPs think they've got the solution because they've hired for the role internally. They're all burnt out, the enablement teams, and they're all focusing on product and onboarding. But there's actually the benefit of bringing in like someone like us for 3 months just to solely work with each sales rep to make sure that they've gone from wherever they were before, B, A, C, whatever it is, to much higher. And then on top of everything, your enablement team doing the ROI is just like mouth-watering. But I think there's just such a miscommunication, or just they don't see it, they don't know it, they've hired for the role. Why do they think it's still a problem? And they're like, oh, it can't be a sales execution problem because we've got a whole enablement team. But they don't realize what the enablement team are focusing on, and they're just stretched.
Yep. Yeah. Too much on their plate. They're a lot of times they're working with those like new hires, right, with the onboarding, which is even that's a common mistake that I won't really get into. But
I mean, onboarding's just in the industry that I've come from, onboarding's an absolute fundamental disaster. I'm talking like 30, 60, 90 days of a sales rep that's probably crazy like myself, having to sit and just tick box like random stuff. There's no like role plays. It's honestly bizarre, the whole onboarding thing to me. When we go into businesses and I look at their onboarding systems, I'm just like, you've paid this person for 3 months and you've probably paid their quota or their draw or whatever you want to call it as well on top of that, plus their commission. And they've come out of that 90 days, 9 times out of 10, kind of know the product, kind of know how to run everything, but 0 actually like been in the moment, been in the environment, got live feedback, got live coaching, know exactly how to execute on deals, know exactly how to do a proposal that wins. And like, honestly, it's like that's a fundamental like serious flaw within the industry. What they deem as a successful onboarding is them getting reps to like tick box activities and probably be given like a buddy to kind of jump on a few calls with.
Yeah, I would agree 100%. I mean, again, from where I come from, we would aim to have someone fully ramped and onboarded within 21 days.
Your onboarding was brutal. Like the B2B world is never gonna like there's a level. Your onboarding is wild. Like it's like so insane and it's so intense, and it's not for like the faint-hearted. I don't believe the B2B need to be where that is, but there's so much that we can learn to make it where it needs to be, basically, just because the nature of like, when we're at closers, we were on calls back to back all day because of the deal size, whereas you don't need that in B2B, which is arguably you have more time for training.
Well, and to give some context there, for where I'm from, that was a world that typically had no onboarding whatsoever. So it was like sink or swim. Like they just kind of say, here's the playbook. You're going to have calls within 48 hours.
My second day.
Yeah, it's absolutely crazy. So having a proper onboarding was like unheard of. But then in this, B2B world, it's like the opposite extreme where there's like so much to do and it makes no sense. And like, I bet you if you just like deleted 80% of it and just replaced it, like all you really need is a proper like company-wide onboarding where they understand, the why behind the company, how it started, like the story, right? They just need to understand the story behind the company and like, so they can buy into it. And then education on the product, right? Which again should be just the only thing that, like what they need to know, right, to get started. Just trim the fat there, and then the rest of it should just be coaching. Like they should listen to calls, they should do role plays, and then eventually get put on calls. But I bet you most companies that we encounter, like what takes 90 to 120 days to ramp a rep could happen within, with the right leadership, like 45 days.
Yeah, and also like I've hired and scaled endless amounts of sales teams, plus a lot of my friends are sales reps. You get a new job at like a big company, you're in for like a good first like 60 to 90 days. It's gonna be pretty chill. They're not really gonna tell you off for any quota. You're probably not gonna make any mistakes, and it's almost it's deemed as just like an easy first couple of months, which is wild because the nature of the role is so bloody ruthless.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
let's
100%.
just chill for the first couple of months.
Yep. I know. And then, yeah, absolutely. And then you're just like delaying the verdict, you know, will this person last or not? And like, you don't even know because you haven't
That's
been
the issue. You
measuring
just want to
anything.
win or lose early, and that's the same with deals, and it's just equally the same as talent.
Yeah. Agreed. Agreed. And then your main point too was that the revenue enablement, like a lot of times they need that kind of support, you know.
Yeah,
And I think
100%.
just because you have somebody that's their job, it doesn't mean that that they don't need some proper like either structure, some proper systems, some support, and coming in and like equipping them and the sales leaders with what they need to win.
100%.
You know.
100%.
So, but yeah, so I think that's all the time we got. But if you guys, if you're listening to this, you could email us at I think it's support@newell.io. If you ever have any questions, Laura and I, we reply to every single email. So if you have any questions in terms of like your revenue enablement, your sales team, or anything, or you potentially would want us to come in and do a proper like revenue audit. Again, we put a lot into that. It's completely independent every time. We just dig in and we find those problems. And a lot of times, who knows? I mean, the craziest audit I've done is I found $15 million in a revenue leak that once plugged. It was pretty crazy. $15 million annually. So anyways, thanks for listening. Thanks, Laura, for your time.
Thank
And we'll see you
you.
guys next time.